You might not realize it, but politics affects nearly every part of your daily life. From the food you eat to the roads you drive on, and even the way you browse the internet, politicians are making decisions that shape it all. Did you know that the US spends more on healthcare than any other country, yet 45% of Americans avoid doctor visits because they can't afford them? Or that the price of your groceries is directly tied to government policies on farming and trade? Politics is more than just what happens on election day, it's something that impacts you every single day. In this video, we're going to uncover how politics secretly affects the way you live. We'll dive into surprising truths about your grocery bills, your doctor's visits, the commute to work, and even the Wi-Fi you use at home. Stick around because what you're about to learn might change how you see the world, and how you spend your money. Chapter 1: The Hidden Tax. How your grocery bill is politically controlled. You might not realize it, but every time you grab a loaf of bread or a carton of milk, you're paying the price of politics. Government decisions on farming, trade policies, and subsidies shape the cost of food, even if you're just picking up the basics. In the US, for example, the Farm Bill, passed every 5 years, allocates billions in subsidies that support certain crops like corn and soybeans. This keeps prices low for products like corn syrup but makes others, like fresh fruits and vegetables, more expensive. If you've ever wondered why healthy food is often pricier than junk food, it's because of the political priorities that make processed foods cheaper. According to a 2019 report from the World Health Organization, processed foods receive up to 70% more subsidies than fresh produce. And let's not forget trade tariffs. Political decisions on foreign trade can drive up the cost of imported goods. When the US imposed tariffs on China in 2018, the cost of goods like electronics, clothing, and even food ingredients spiked. Your grocery bill isn't just about what you buy, it's shaped by Washington's decisions. The price you pay at checkout also reflects how government regulations impact the food supply chain. Policies around worker wages, transportation costs, and environmental laws all play a role in food prices. Take the carbon tax, for instance. This policy, designed to reduce carbon emissions, can raise costs on agricultural goods since farms and food production are significant contributors to pollution. The effect? Higher prices on many everyday items. So next time you head to the store, remember, it's not just about the brand or where you shop. Politics are part of your bill too. Chapter 2: From roads to Wi-Fi. The politics behind your commute and connectivity, the roads you drive on, the trains you ride, and even the Wi-Fi you depend on all come down to one thing: politics. Government spending and political choices have a direct impact on infrastructure, from highways to broadband access. According to the American Society of Civil Engineers, the US needs an estimated $2 trillion to repair and modernize its infrastructure. But guess what? Political disagreements often stand in the way of progress. Take roads, for example. The US interstate system, which makes up about 47,000 miles of highways, was built decades ago, and many are in desperate need of repair. Politicians in Washington are constantly debating how to fund this massive project. Gas taxes, vehicle registration fees, and tolls are all options, but they require political consensus, which can be tough to achieve. So, if your commute feels like a never-ending pothole-filled journey, it's because of decisions made, or not made, in Washington. And let's talk about Wi-Fi. The Federal Communications Commission, FCC, plays a huge role in internet accessibility, deciding where and how broadband infrastructure is developed. In rural areas, lack of government support means slow or no internet access at all. A 2020 Pew Research survey found that 34% of rural Americans say they don't have reliable internet, compared to just 5% in urban areas. Without government intervention, many people are left in the digital dark. On the other hand, decisions to build or expand public transportation systems depend heavily on local political will. Cities like New York, which has a robust subway system, rely on political action to fund these systems. Meanwhile, in places like Los Angeles, political disagreements about public versus private transportation options have led to slower development and worse congestion. So, while you may think of your daily commute and Wi-Fi as part of life, the truth is, politics determines whether it's smooth sailing or a traffic nightmare. Chapter 3: The School System Shuffle. How political power decides what you learn. Think about the last time you opened a textbook or attended a school event. It's more than just education, it's political influence at work. The curriculum you or your children learn is shaped by political decisions at every level. In the US, state legislatures, local school boards, and even the federal government play a massive role in determining what's taught in the classroom. Take standardized testing, for instance. Politicians often push for tests to measure student achievement, yet these tests have long been criticized for favoring certain groups over others. A 2017 study by the American Educational Research Association showed that standardized tests disproportionately hurt minority and low-income students. Despite this, many lawmakers continue to push for high-stakes testing because it's an easy way to gauge school performance. Then, there's the ongoing debate over school funding. Politics directly influences how much money a school receives. In some states, wealthy areas receive more funding than poorer ones, leading to unequal educational opportunities. According to Education Week, the richest school districts spend more than $4,000 per student than the poorest ones. This means that politics isn't just deciding what you learn, it's deciding how well you learn it. Also, the influence of political agendas in the classroom is hard to ignore. The push for school choice, charter schools, and private schooling often gets tangled up with political ideologies. Some politicians push for school vouchers, which let parents use public funds for private education. In contrast, others argue for stronger public school systems as the foundation of a fair education system. And let's not forget the impact of political decisions on what subjects are prioritized. Decisions on whether to teach certain topics, like climate change, sex education, or civics, are heavily influenced by who's in power. A state like Texas, for example, has had multiple debates over the teaching of evolution and climate science, showing how politics can influence even the most basic facts. If you're finding this interesting, don't forget to hit the subscribe button to stay updated on how politics affects your everyday life. Chapter 4. Your health, your politics. What's really behind your doctor's visit? You might think that your doctor's visit is about your health and nothing else, but the truth is, politics plays a huge role in what care you get and how much it costs. From insurance policies to drug prices, political decisions affect nearly every part of your healthcare experience. One of the biggest factors is health insurance. When Congress passed the Affordable Care Act, ACA, in 2010, it changed the way many people accessed healthcare, making it easier for some, while others still struggled with high premiums. In fact, a 2019 Kaiser Family Foundation survey found that nearly 45% of Americans said they or a family member had put off medical care in the last year due to costs. This statistic shows how much political decisions about healthcare can affect your day-to-day life. When politicians debate over Medicare, Medicaid, and private insurance, they're deciding whether you'll be able to afford the visit to the doctor or prescription medication. Take drug prices, for instance. The US spends more on prescription drugs than any other country, and it's all thanks to government regulations. A 2020 House of Representatives report revealed that the price of prescription drugs has nearly doubled in the past 2 decades. This is a direct result of political decisions around drug pricing, patents, and pharmaceutical industry lobbying. And while politicians in Washington continue to argue about price controls, everyday people pay the price. Even the availability of healthcare services in rural areas is a political issue. According to the National Rural Health Association, rural areas often struggle to get adequate healthcare, as many doctors are reluctant to practice in these regions due to low reimbursement rates and lack of funding. So, if you live in a small town and can't easily find a healthcare provider, it's because of political decisions that affect funding and doctor distribution. The next time you're faced with high medical bills or long waits at the doctor's office, remember, it's not just about healthcare, it's about the policies that shape how we access it. Chapter 5. The Invisible Vote. How political decisions shape your digital life. When you scroll through your social media feed or shop online, you might think it's all about your personal choices. But behind every click, political decisions are at play, deciding what data is collected, how it's used, and even what you see online. In recent years, tech companies like Facebook, Google, and Amazon have come under scrutiny for their handling of personal data. And guess what? These companies are influenced by political decisions on data privacy laws, regulations, and antitrust policies. Take the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, for example. This law, passed by the European Union in 2018, changed how tech companies gather and store personal data. It has set a global standard for data privacy and forced companies worldwide to rethink how they handle your information. But in the US, the lack of a comprehensive data privacy law means tech companies often have the freedom to collect, store, and sell your data without much oversight. Then there's the issue of online censorship and the algorithms that determine what content you see. In 2020, social media platforms like Twitter and Facebook faced heavy criticism for how they handled misinformation during the election. Some people argued that these platforms were censoring certain viewpoints, while others believed they weren't doing enough to stop the spread of false information. The truth is, the political environment and government regulations influence how companies like Facebook manage content, sometimes affecting your access to information. The rise of artificial intelligence, AI, is another area where politics impacts your digital life. In 2021, China passed a law restricting the use of AI in surveillance technology, citing concerns over privacy. The US has yet to implement similar laws, and the debate over how to regulate AI continues to shape how these technologies are used to track you, target ads, or even monitor your activities. So, while you might think of your digital life as private and personal, the truth is, it's shaped by the political decisions that govern the tech industry. The next time you scroll through your feed, remember, it's not just you behind that screen, it's also the politics that drive what you see. Chapter 6: The Cost of Living Crisis. How politics fuels your rent, bills, and salaries. The prices you pay for rent, utilities, and even your paycheck are all influenced by politics. Decisions made by local, state, and federal governments play a huge role in shaping the cost of living, often in ways we don't even realize. Take housing prices, for example. In cities like San Francisco and New York, the cost of rent has skyrocketed in recent years, largely due to political decisions around zoning laws, rent control, and housing development. According to a 2020 National Low-Income Housing Coalition report, in no state can a person working a 40-hour week at minimum wage afford a two-bedroom apartment at fair market rent. This shows how the decisions of lawmakers impact not just your ability to buy a home but even rent a simple apartment. But it's not just housing, politics also plays a big role in energy costs. In 2021, the US saw significant fluctuations in natural gas prices, largely due to political decisions about energy production and climate change policies. The U.S. Energy Information Administration, EIA, reported that natural gas prices in 2021 increased by more than 100% from the previous year, driven by both supply chain disruptions and government policies on energy production. This directly affects the price you pay for heating, electricity, and even gas for your car. Then there's the minimum wage debate. While some states and cities have pushed for higher wages, others continue to hold the federal minimum wage at $7.25 an hour. In 2021, over 32 million people in the US were earning less than $15 an hour, a salary that barely covers basic living expenses in many parts of the country. The political fight over raising the minimum wage shows how much politics influences your paycheck and, in turn, your quality of life. Lastly, when it comes to taxes, politicians decide where and how much you pay. Property taxes, sales taxes, and income taxes all vary depending on where you live and who's in office. For example, states like California and New York have some of the highest property taxes in the US, while states like Texas and Florida have no state income tax, which affects how much money you take home. So, while it might seem like the cost of living is just a natural part of life, it's clear that politics is a major player. The next time you struggle to pay your rent or utility bill, it's worth remembering, politics isn't just about elections and policies, it's about your everyday expenses. If you found this information eye-opening, be sure to subscribe for more insights on how politics impacts your life. In conclusion, the impact of politics on your daily life is undeniable. Whether it's the price of groceries, the state of your healthcare, the way you interact online, or the cost of living in your city, political decisions are shaping your world in ways you might not even realize. So, next time you feel frustrated about a bill or a commute, remember, it's all part of the larger political picture.